The Lord be with you. This is a reading from the Good News according to John. This, as I said a moment ago, the Gospel is about the vine and its branches. And the metaphor, the significance of the Gospel, of course, is that we're all connected. Our lives are intertwined in ways that probably we don't realise. And not only our lives, but we're connected with every living thing on this planet, which even stretches our imagination. But it's a beautiful metaphor, and it's a very powerful gospel. Let me read it to you. Jesus said to his disciples, "I am the true vine, and my Father is the vine grower. He removes every branch in me that bears no fruit, and every branch that does bear fruit, he prunes to make it bear even more fruit. You have already been cleansed by the word that I have spoken to you. Abide in me as I abide in you. Just as a branch cannot bear fruit by itself unless it abides in the vine, neither can you unless you abide in me. I am the vine, you are the branches. Those who abide in me and I in them bear much fruit, because apart from me you can do nothing. Whoever does not abide in me is thrown away like a branch and withers. Such branches are gathered, thrown into the fire and burnt. If you abide in me, and my words abide in you, ask for whatever you wish, and it will be done to you. My Father is glorified by this, that you bear much fruit and become my disciples." The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
Ever tried to root out lantana? You know what lantana is? It's incredible. It's incredibly strong, woven sort of. I think it's South American actually, but whatever it is, it's to try to root it out. I had a job once, years ago, when it was about 1957 or 58. And I worked for a real estate agent. I was in the seminary, had to make a few bucks in the holidays, so I convinced this real estate agent, foolishly, or he was the foolish one, that I'd clear some land for him. And in this land, there was lantana. So cutting out lantana and putting it in a big pile was my task, and I subcontracted a couple of other students, and we cleared this land. It was January. So when all the lantana was gone, I decided to pile it up and burn it. So I put a match to it, and it went up like wonderfully well. And every fire brigade on the North Shore of history arrived. I lost the job. I was sacked. But it was a task of cutting out that lantana. But when I hear of the vine and the branches, I think of lantana. That we are all connected. That one life is like another. However, it's like a tug-of-war game. There's one thing pulling us in one direction, and another thing pulling us in another direction. All the books say we are connected. It's a very, St. Paul, for example, he says, if one member suffers, one member of the community suffers, all the parts share the suffering. That's a very strong statement. If one member is honoured, all the others rejoice in it. Well, think of the implications at first. I mean, how close do we feel to those whose lives are being destroyed in Gaza? How close do we feel to African starving children? How close do we feel to the Indigenous in Australia whose stories and lifestyle has been so crushed by colonialism? I mean, it's one thing to say it. All the books say we are connected. All the best thinking says that we are connected to every living thing on the planet. However, at the other end of the tug-of-war thing is our culture. Our culture says we are individuals. Think, who was it? Can't think of who it is, but it wasn't Musk, but the fellow who invented the iPhone. What's his name? You don't know? Jobs. Jobs with the iPhone, the iPad, everything. We take selfies. We are all sort of caught in this culture of being individuals. Just the opposite to be connected. We live in our caves at home, our wonderful entertainment caves. We have security things on our doors that prevent sort of us breaking out. We're too shy to talk to people. By the way, all of that's pretty old stuff and we hear it often. There's a wonderful story, by the way, about George Bernard Shaw. George Bernard Shaw was asked one day, they said, listen, the National Gallery in London has got all these wonderful paintings. If it caught fire, Mr. Shaw, which painting would you save? And George Bernard Shaw said, the one closest to the door. The thing that occupied him was not culture, not beauty, not the great historic, it was survival. He wanted to survive, and we all want to survive. But that's one end of the tug-of-war rope. The books say we are connected, and we live actually unconnected lives. Or I do, at least. Don't know about you. I like to live in my little house, and now I'm retired. I spend too much time watching television, too much time reading, too much time sort of being away from people. And I love it, I must say. There's something within me, some sense of selfishness. Is it selfishness? Some sense of ego that doesn't want to be broken open. And that's the trouble. That's the struggle that I think many of us go through. At one end, our better angels say we are connected. And at the other end, our lesser angels want us to live a little closeted, simple, problem-free life. We don't want to get involved in the problems of others. Sometimes we do, and we feel pretty good about it, but then we go back to our own little caves. So that's the struggle we have. When we come to Mass here of a Sunday, there's a very strong statement towards the fact that we are connected. But we've even sort of damaged that a bit too, I think. The statement about we're being connected is when we receive communion. I don't know how your piety or prayers go when you receive communion, but you may, as I often do, think of that I'm related to Jesus. I have somehow a divine presence within me. I've taken that host, and I usually go back to my seat if I'm and thank God for who I am, what I've received, and my faith. That's my prayer. What I don't do sufficiently is realise This communion is relating me to the person sitting in the pew next to me. This communion is us coming together as a community. This communion says that my stories and the stories of the person next to me and the stories of the people that I sort of brush past as I come and go from the church are my stories. Communion is the antidote to the iPhone. Communion is the part of the tug-of-war rope that says that my life is open to others. And so that's one way that our Eucharist challenges us. Interestingly, I've been a priest, a Catholic for about 110 years, I think, but we Catholics, by the way, this parish is quite an exception to this, but most parishes, the Catholics like to sit on the edge of things, at the back of the church. Can't ever get them standing up the front. Congratulations, by the way, thank you. Thank you for sitting up the front of the church. You get big stars. But most Catholic churches, people don't sit at the front. I often wonder why. It's shyness. It's not wanting to say, look, you know, I'm a very important member of the community. It's not wanting to be involved, wanting to hurry out. Used to be hurry out of the communion time. You know, as soon as communion was over, off we'd go. But we were fringe, we were on the fringe of things. But the Eucharist is challenging that. And by the way, the great tradition in this parish, that's challenging it too. Sister Clare and the whole tradition of the parish brings us together, gets us to talk to one another, gets us to meet one another. Here's a challenge to you today. Find some person as you're going out of church who you don't know and say, good day, hello, you know, what's your name? If you really want to get serious, ask them what this story is. But that's the antidote to the culture we're living in, which is an incredibly individualistic culture. And it's becoming more and more and more individualistic. And so to receive communion, to come to a Eucharist on the Sunday is an antidote to that. It pulls one end of the tug-of-war. It gets us to open up. Pope Francis, of course, and the big sort of movement in the church at the moment is to a thing called a synodal church. It's a terrible word, by the way. Anyway, it criticised the Pope. It's a terrible word, but it simply means listening. We need to listen to one another. The bishops need to listen to us. We need to listen to one another. We need to come together to the best way to connect is to listen. The best way to connect to another person is to listen to their story, to encourage them to tell you their story. And Pope Francis and the whole movement in the church at the moment is towards a synodal church, a listening church, a church in which everyone has a story and there's a story worth listening to. So that we're swimming in against a tsunami of individualism. We're swimming against an incredible storm that says, stay home and live in your little cave. And in fact, well, apart from anything else, I think it's killing us. I don't know, gone too far, but I'm not sure that that's not one of the great causes of depression and anxiety, that we live in this individual world. But apart from that, so today, when you receive communion, recognise, reflect upon, pray about the people who are sitting in the pews next to you. You connect yourself to Christ, but you also connect yourselves to this wonderful parish of St Joseph's, and may that be the effect of your communion. And remember, if you're ever asked a painting in the National Gallery, look for the one closest to the door. How about we stand for this affirmation of our faith? For those of you who don't familiar with it, it's a little bit of a different creed. It brings up different ideas, or wider ideas. It's an attempt to translate the Nicene Creed, written, 1700 years ago, to language and ideas that are important to us now. Join me in this affirmation of faith. We believe in God, in whom is power and compassion. We believe in the Creator who gave birth to the universe, set solar systems dancing in space, shaped molecules in mountains, and conceived beauty beyond all imagination. God's power topples tyrants and brings down walls of separation. God's love embodies the tenderness of a mother and a father, encouraging character and dirty presence. We believe in Jesus, born in obscurity in an occupied land, a human being vulnerable to hunger and thirst, persecution and grief. We understand the power of love, and confronted the powers of evil, spoke the truth with courage and clarity. He engaged his enemies and changed lives. In his living, dying and rising again, he showed love strong enough to save the world. We read in the Holy Spirit who sustains and humbles and guides, opens the Scriptures, opens our minds, and illuminates earth's darkness. Amen. May the God of peace inspire us. May the God of justice empower us. May the God of hope encourage us. Amen. I'd like to sit now and